Hi, nice to meet you.
Welcome to the VGA interview side. What's your name? What do you do?
I'm Raffa from Bippinbits. At Bippinbits I'm a bit of a generalist, so I do all kind of stuff, 3D art, programming, game design, all kind of things.
Wonderful. So, we already have taken some footage of your game, and I would just like to ask from the, let's start at a general view and then close into more specific things. Like, what got you guys into the idea to make this game?
The original idea comes from a sound file. René, the director of the game, found a sound file of a button swig a couple of years ago and thought it sounded so cool that we need to make a game with that sound.
A button click?
Yeah, it sounded so good, like this. Very satisfying.
Nice.
And yeah, then he built a prototype for the game long time ago, I think 5 years or something like that. And it was a very simple prototype, like a 2D game. And from that, it was left behind a little bit. We did different things. We made Domekeeper. And then after that, at some point we thought about, could we have like a small project in between? And then we were both really hyped about this old prototype. We have this cannon and shoot at incoming ships. But it was a very like super basic prototype, just 2D. And that was how the game was born.
Of course. The game, of course, this is a nice word that I learned a couple of years ago. It's called skeuomorphism. Have you ever heard of this term?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think I can't exactly remember skeuomorphism. I heard it.
I can give my definition. It's probably also.
Give me like 2 words, and then I think I probably remember.
Basically, it's the UI element equivalent of what you see is what you get. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
There's something that you operate, looks the way that it's supposed to look, and it kind of works the way it's supposed to work in real life, basically. And
so like a diegetic interface.
Yeah, that's a good term, right? Yeah. And of course, one of the best examples of this would, of course, be Highfleet. If you've played the game, right?
I've played Highfleet.
I'm not sure. I hate to insinuate influences because that's always an ugly thing to do, right?
Yeah.
But Highfleet was one of my favorite games. The strategic view, not so much the direct gameplay. And I wanted to ask, has it had any influence? Just vaguely?
I would say probably. Like humans are influenced by everything they experience over the lifetime. Right. And I'm also a big Highfleet fan. I really liked how everything looked like a proper hardware. Yeah. That was really nice. I think another big inspiration was Steel Battalion, if you're maybe familiar with that. It's like an older game for Xbox One, where you bought like a mech game, but it came with a big controller.
Oh, yeah,
and it had everything was lit, and that was one of my favorite games of all times. I bought it back then and played it a lot. So
yeah, that's amazing because as far as I remember, the reason I remember it was really funny. The first game was this monstrous mega controller.
Yeah. And
for the second game, they switched to no controller because they tried to do it over the Kinect and it didn't work at all.
No, that didn't work. Yeah.
Right. I like this concept of this very, you could call it like pseudo-analog gaming, right?
Yeah.
It's basically a style of game where you remove all the automation that usually happens in the background, right? Like, I mean, for example, if you play a game like War Thunder, the funny thing is the War Thunder game spans multiple generations of tanks, and some of them were completely like raw metal.
Yeah.
You have to turn the screw input to move the turret, right?
Yeah.
And in later ones, of course, you have full gyro stabilization. But due to the way the gameplay works with the mouse aim, you can't tell any difference because it's all already stabilized, and you've consciously taken the steps to make this as complicated essentially as possible and build a whole story out of it. I find that very interesting.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why we made the game is like the satisfying button click sound. And I think it's one of the core identities of the game, that this fun of exploring a cockpit, like the ability to press every button and to find out what it does, the kind of fantasy you get into an airplane cockpit and you're allowed to press every button and move everything. That's, for a lot of people, it's a great idea.
Of course it is.
And yeah, we wanted to capture this idea in the game.
And of course, since it's a game, you can screw up and blow yourself up with no big repercussions. I happen to have a friend who's certified as a civilian Airbus pilot. He doesn't work that, but he just knows how to operate one of those huge simulators completely to every last corner, and it's amazing how much you can do when you flick one wrong switch.
Yeah,
it's wonderful. Right? I love it. And so about the game, sadly, the last build of the game I've played except of course a short session here at the con, but that's not very in depth, is over a year old, and I wanted to just ask, like, what sort of things have you recently changed, added to in the game for the viewers?
A ton. I don't know how much I'm supposed to say.
Of course,
but
I
keep it as mysterious as possible. So, of course, new weapon systems, like the footage that you see from the game most of the time is the big cannon shooting.
Yes.
And of course that's fun, but the game's story is basically a big war. And not every mission is the day after the day. Sometimes month passes in between. And like in a real war, there's this kind of technological steps from one side and the other. And one side needs to catch up, then the other comes with a solution to that again. And we have the same setup in our game. So once the enemy gets used to you shooting the big cannon, they find ways around that. And then you need new weapon systems, new technology to solve those problems effectively. So for one example that I'm not sure if we showed it yet, but you can load a different ammunition, which is high explosive. It is a completely different interface from the normal cannon. Like every weapon system is completely individual. It's not every time the same thing. And with the high explosive, you can shoot at one position, you can set the height, and then you can destroy multiple ships.
Basically, I think back in the Second World War, they called that a flak shell. Right?
Yeah, basically, but
I mean, of course,
bigger.
It's all flak because, of course.
In our game, it's of course super huge.
A timer shell, basically.
Yeah, basically, exactly that.
When it explodes.
Yeah, you set the timer, and then you need to calculate how long the projectile travels. But
well, not to make too many Highfleet references in this interview, but of course, will they be laser guided? That would make it too easy. Probably.
Yeah. It's also a bit too advanced, I think,
right.
At least for the state that the war is in the things that we showed so far.
Of course.
So I don't want to say too much, but there are a lot of weapon systems planned, and they all work in a different way. You have to relearn also how to strategically apply them in that moment. Like you need to understand what the enemy is about to do, and make a battle plan basically, and react to that with all the systems that you have at your station basically.
Is this going to be basically like, I mean, I was a conscript once, and I kind of learned a couple of things. Like the military loves to have a plan for absolutely every situation, and they love to force it down your throat. And sometimes you don't even know that it existed, but someone can totally start tearing into you because, oh, how did you not know this? It was in guidebook 487 part B, right?
Yeah.
And so, are you going to make it like this, that it's somewhere in there in the system, or people have to actually...
No, you have to figure it out yourself. There's no one saying, oh, you have to do this, and at this time you have to shoot that shell. You just have to figure out how the enemy behaves and what's going to happen.
All right, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And, usually, I mean, again, this is from basically book experience, but usually whenever the enemy comes up with something very new and exciting, the first people who run into it usually get dead. So I wanted to ask, like, are you going to be about the story of the game? Is there going to be any sort of sections where, for example, the current station that you're at gets annihilated and you have to, basically the next episode is at a different cannon station if you survive it?
So I'm not going to tell too much about the story, but I can say that this is not going to happen. So you will stay there in the bunker. There are a lot of secrets to uncover. There are a lot of things that are not obvious, but I can't say too much.
Of course. To take inspiration from another game that strives to be so, let's say, analog about the gameplay, a game like, for example, Papers, Please, right? This, of course, had many different endings, right? Yeah. Are you also going for this in this game?
Yeah. We also have different endings.
A hero and a traitor?
Kind of. Those are very extreme endings.
Of course, and everything in between.
In our world, it's not black and white. That's one thing that we take a lot of care of. Just like the real world, it's not black and white. There are no super bad people and super good people. Everyone has their reasons to do certain things, and from their perspective, it makes perfect sense.
Obviously.
And as a player, you can be like just a soldier. You take your briefing, you do your mission, you go drink your tea, you go to bed, you wake up and take the next mission. You can play the whole game like this. You can just care for anything. You can be a good Antos soldier.
That's probably going to be the first playthrough of most people.
Maybe, we don't know. But you can also try to uncover what's underneath the surface and maybe find out about the reasoning from the attacking faction, and you can find out the reason from other people that maybe there are more than 2 factions. So I can't say too much, but again, it's a gray world where a lot of there's boundaries that just cross, and you as a player will make decisions where you feel comfortable with your own moral decisions, and that can change the outcome of the war and also the ending of the game.
Well, the most, what is it called? The playthrough that usually sticks with people the most is the one where they just do what comes natural, right? I find that, at least that's what I found during my playthroughs of many games. In this context, I'm kind of reminded of the game Brigador. Have you ever heard of that one?
No, I didn't play that one.
The simple description of it is basically you drive a giant mech through a favela and you kill everybody. You are actually the bad guy in that game.
Okay.
Because basically it's a regime change operation. You've been hired to betray your friends because you operate a large machine, and that's what you do. You're supposed to blow up the defense structures so the other army can invade. And well, that game has often been described as a war crime bonanza, right? So are you going to give people we have an invading faction? A natural conclusion would be to suggest that sometime in later levels there's going to be something like a landing ship that's actually unarmed. Are you going to throw in dangerous choices like that?
I won't give any information about any of that.
Wonderful.
I want to keep some surprises.
Of course, wonderful. Well, I love your input about this. I'm very thankful for it. We have this sort of special thing that we always do in our interviews. At the end, we ask if your game would be a food. What would it be?
A food?
A food, yeah.
A fruit?
A food.
A food, okay.
Right, so yesterday we interviewed the guys over there from the Korean booth. They have a game based on flashlights, and it was interesting because every item, if you turned it around, it could be something completely different when you shone the light on it, right? And so it turned into some sort of he said it would be French fries because they could be soft or they could be super crispy and you never know, right?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Our game can be very raw and animalistic almost, like this big explosion, big cannon, but it also has a lot to uncover. So what would that be?
It sounds like it's less a food and more like a process of making a food.
Oh, maybe. I like pizza a lot. Maybe that's a good comparison.
And so you have to
it can be raw. It's raw, but it can give new experiences maybe. But maybe that could also be complete nonsense.
No, I mean, you can always make it different by just throwing something else on. And if you screw up the settings, it just turns out burned.
And you have to make a moral decision if it's okay to put pineapple on it or not.
Well, it's
That's
obviously
tough.
wrong. But
you can be considered a traitor if you do that. So maybe that makes a lot of sense.
Perfect, right? Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting how in the last couple of years we have been having games that explore morals through very gritty mechanical things, exactly like Papers, Please, for example. Yeah, I'm very thankful that you expand the horizons of the gamers in this sense.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for this interview.
You're welcome. Thanks to you.
Wonderful.